Welcome back to Fantasy Football by Committee, powered by Flurry Sports. It can be tough to win a fantasy league on your own, but at FFBC, we will work together to bring home the hardware. Hosted by Zach Bruner and the rest of the Flurry Sports crew, we will give top-level analysis, answer your questions, and, well, go off on other tangents.
That was after I tried to get ChatGPT to admit that 9/11 was an inside job, but it stood firm. It gave quite a few solid points that it was true.
Welcome to Fantasy Football by Committee. The show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Hello. What's going on, everybody? Making some changes here since I just realized I did not switch the week. This is the Fantasy Football Week 10 Waiver Wire Advice Show. Obviously recording this Monday morning, so Monday Night Football hasn't started yet, obviously, so no Jets and Chargers news. We'll be going over some of the top fantasy football news, some of the injury stuff like that, players to pick up heading into Week 10. Obviously, tonight there is a couple players that are certainly relevant in terms of the trending players. We got Josh Palmer put on IR. So Quentin Johnston elevates to wide receiver 2. Do I think he does much tonight? Probably not. But going forward, he might be something. What's going on, Stu? I'm not sure if you are on YouTube much, Stu, but I did cut the video of the great water debate if you would like to go back and watch that. 2 parts. One is the full thing of is water wet and all of that bullshit. And one is just a shorter cut up of are you wet if you're underwater? And I got to tell you what, watching that back didn't get any smarter. It was a lot of stupid takes. It was a lot of dumb shit. Hopefully we get a little bit smarter here though. Talking about football, talking about some of the injuries, some of the players to pick up. Week 10, we have more bye weeks. We have 4 teams on bye and pretty relevant teams this week for fantasy football and the NFL, I suppose. So we got the Chiefs, the Dolphins, both on bye after their Germany trip, the Rams and the Eagles. So we're talking, you'll be without Mahomes, Tua, Jalen Hurts. You already were prepared without Stafford. We got some pretty big running backs as well. We got Pacheco. We have the combination of the Rams guys you may be using. We got Raheem Mostert. We have DeAndre Swift. And then a whole bunch of receivers, some tight ends mixed in as well. A whole lot of players here that are going to be on bye. We also have injuries, obviously. So this could be a pretty big, Week 10 could be a pretty big waiver wire week. And I know we're creeping up on the trade deadline for a lot of leagues as well. So a lot of trades happening this week. So if you have any trade questions today or going forward this week, definitely ask them on videos, ask them on the Fantasy Football by Committee Facebook group, wherever you can. And I can do a special trade show, fantasy football trade show as well, if you would like, if that's useful. Garrett asked, though, for tonight, what's the chances Eckler gets me at least 14? I'm going to assume it's PPR scoring. I think the good thing with Eckler tonight is that Herbert should theoretically check down to him a decent amount. I don't know how much the downfield shit is going to be freed up. Stoof needs 37 from Eckler. I think the chances he gets 14 is okay. I think he's going to be right on that 14 borderline, maybe without a touchdown. So hopefully, he gets a touchdown to secure it for you. 37 is going to be tough, but I mean, the way to attack the Jets obviously is running the football. It won't be throwing it a ton. It certainly won't be throwing it downfield. So we should see a pretty hefty workload for Eckler tonight. Hopefully you can get 37. I don't think I play him in any league, so feel free to go off Austin Eckler if you are watching. And I mean, Not that this is on the top of his priority list, but he's pretty invested in the fantasy football community. He has fantasy football businesses and shows and stuff like that. So on Monday Night Football, on a very big stage, it wouldn't be overly surprising to see him go off, but we shall see. We shall see. Really quick, some of the other injuries to talk about, and obviously, you can parlay that into waiver wire stuff, into trades, into assuming value for other players as well. We know Dallas Goedert has a forearm fracture. The Eagles don't play this week, but Goddard does seem to be out for several weeks. It wouldn't be overly surprising to see him go on IR, I don't think. So, keep that in mind. If you are a Dallas Goedert owner, you're not just preparing for a week bye week fill in here. You're also looking for maybe a month leading up maybe to the fantasy playoffs. So choose wisely. I don't know if I'm necessarily going to a backup tight end in Philadelphia to start for fantasy at least, but if you're in a 16 team, maybe there isn't much many players out there. But yeah, I probably am not going towards Philly. I'll talk about some other tight ends in a second. They may be there. Garrett, do I give up on Tony Pollard? The dude has been a waste of space essentially this year. Here's the thing. Do you give up on him? I'm not trading him for nothing. I'm not selling low. But if you are in win now mode, you have to win absolutely everything to get out, of this fucking fantasy football hell or purgatory or wherever you need to win out to make the playoffs. Then I think you can explore moving him. But I get the frustrations. I'm an owner of him in one league, I think. But boy, better days should be ahead. The Cowboys offensive line, I think, will gel and be a little bit more effective down the stretch of the year. I think that's good news for Tony Pollard. And yeah, I think better days are going to be ahead just overall. But yeah, don't sell him for, mid running back 2 value. I think rest of season, you're 7-1. So I think you have to, you can for sure bench him. You can take a wait and see approach with him at the current moment for sure. I don't know if you can sell high. If you can sell high, then do it. If someone is so overly optimistic that he's going to get better, that they're willing to overbid for him, then do it. But he's not a must sell. Don't sell low. Don't sell for mid RB2 value. Don't do that. And you especially have the luxury of putting him on your bench. If you lose a week, you lose a week. You don't want to lose any weeks. But if you do, I had not a 1-to-1 comparison here, but in a dynasty league with salary cap and stuff like that, I was put in a situation this past week. It would have been 7-1. We had one loss. And it's a 2 quarterback league, essentially. It's on dynasty owner. So you have a starting team, you have a practice squad team, and then you have a bench. And our starting quarterback was Kirk Cousins, obviously out for the year. My number 2 quarterback's Bryce Young. Number 3 is Badgett. So instead of spending on, I cleared up enough cap space to get either Deshaun Watson or Kyler Murray. I could have gone a Taylor Heineke route. Instead of, doing a reflex, just claiming a guy, signing a guy immediately, I decided to roll into this week with Bryce Young and Badgett just to see the landscape, to see how things shake out a little bit. And then I'll spend accordingly this week. I'm going to lose this week. I was willing to afford this loss because I know I'm pretty confident I can win out the rest of the way. Even if I don't win out the rest of the way, or you win out the rest of the way, you have a playoff spot locked up, right? So put him on your bench. You don't need to sell. I think brighter days are ahead. Let me look at his fantasy playoff schedule just for the hell of it here. Let's just assume you start in week 14, maybe you start in week 15. But week 14 on, he has Philadelphia at home. Feels like a game he certainly could go off on. He goes to Buffalo. That could be a game he absolutely goes off. To Miami. Love that. And then home against the Detroit Lions in week 17. So there are some schedules. This is the time to start looking ahead to fantasy playoffs if you feel pretty confident about your team. And I don't see anything there that would scare me off of Tony Pollard. In fact, there could be several high-scoring games there and games where he can certainly be used as both a runner and receiver. And I love that. I love that. The best thing about Tony Pollard is he truly doesn't have any competition. So things should get better. Is Kenneth Walker on a snap count that you know of? I can't find anything to say that he is, but single-digit points back-to-back games. Honestly, if it wasn't for starting CJ Stroud, you would have lost. Yeah, he is certainly. I don't think it's necessarily like a strict snap count, but he's battling through some things. I think he played only about half of the snaps this week. Charbonnet played. It has been increasing his snaps. Let's see if I can see exactly how many he played here. Walker played half, 49% of the snaps. Last week he played 41. Not very many touches, obviously. But yeah, he's been battling some injuries. And I mean, this past week, he just wasn't really effective and they were getting their ass handed to him. So that factored into the 49% as well. Kenneth Walker is a weird one. I like him as a player. I was low on him coming in. He kind of proved me wrong. But now he's kind of turning into what I thought he was. So it's weird. But the reason I'm a little afraid is week 12, he plays the Niners. Week 14, he plays the Niners again. Week 16, he plays the Titans. And mixed in between those are Dallas, which is okay, whatever. And Philadelphia, not the easiest. So, and then week 17 is Pittsburgh. Like talking about schedules down the stretch, I don't love Kenneth Walker's schedule whatsoever. Shout out for CJ Stroud for you, though. He was so good. So good. Let's talk about some of the trending fantasy football players on Sleeper Fantasy. These are the most picked up players over the past 24 hours. And it's not surprising to see the number one most trending player on Sleeper Fantasy, Keaton Mitchell, rookie running back for the Baltimore Ravens. This is a person we talked about, a player I talked about probably about a month ago at this point. I really liked him. I thought you should pick him up. I thought he could do something. And then the Ravens were so slow to bring him in to do anything, really. He was activated. He was hurt to start the year, so activated. Practice window opened. They drug it a little bit to even make him active. Once he was active, he didn't really do anything. And thanks to the blowout of the Seattle Seahawks this past week, Keaton Mitchell got some run, and boy, did he fucking impress. This dude's so good. I think he fits this Baltimore Ravens team really well. He can certainly be the lightning to Gus Edwards' thunder, as I said, I think a month ago at this point. But now, people are saying this is the number one fantasy football pickup of the week. He's the most trending fantasy football player of the week. And we need to use our brains a little bit here. Like, I like Keaton Mitchell. In Dynasty, he has to be owned. In redraft, he probably should be owned at this point. But to say that he is the most sought after player this week, the biggest pickup, like let's look into what the situation was. Let's use a little bit of, let's add context to this situation. So Keaton Mitchell played 18% of the snaps. He had 9 carries, 138 yards and a touchdown, had 1 catch for -4 yards. And again, the Ravens beat the shit out of the Seahawks in the first half, really. First quarter for sure. First half, really. Gus Edwards, Justice Hill split the backfield. And then towards the end of the game, you know, they were up by 30 points. Gus Edwards didn't even log a single snap in the fourth quarter. Same thing with Zay Flowers. I think Mark Andrews played 1 snap. They just let these young guys, these other guys get some run. And Keaton Mitchell, took the opportunity and literally ran with it. But now people are saying this guy needs to be the pickup. Look how good he is. At best, he's number 3 in a 3-man committee. Let's just put that out there for sure. Again, last time I did a video like this, people fucking torched me. I love Keaton Mitchell. I think Keaton Mitchell is a great talent. I think he should be over Justice Hill. He's not going to be. Gus Edwards, RB1. Maybe Keaton Mitchell can eventually build up his, role to jump ahead of Justice Hill, but it's not going to be now. Like next week, if it's a close game, I think the most optimistic projection for Keaton Mitchell is going to be 5 carries. There's no shot. It's a blowout and everyone's rushing to pick him up. Don't do that. Don't be that person. Don't use your waiver priority. Don't blow all your fab. Don't do anything like that on Keaton Mitchell. This is the product of a blowout. And you don't need to be that person to spend all your fab and then get burnt because Keaton Mitchell doesn't play next week. Stoof has held Keaton on IR until he came back, then dropped him because he didn't play. Yeah, I mean, I kind of did the same thing. I picked him up in one of the dynasty leagues, and then held him. I held him too long, seemingly. Multiple games where he didn't play or saw a snap, didn't do anything. Then I finally dropped him. I don't even remember who I picked up. I picked up somebody with maybe wouldn't have been Pop Douglas. I don't remember. I picked up somebody, but now I'm going to have to add him back. But I have him in the other dynasty league. I have him in a couple of other leagues. I love Keaton Mitchell. East Carolina, I believe, product. Super quick, super fast. I think he is a great compliment to Gus Edwards. But we can't trust him on third downs because he can't pass protect. He's not really, he's for sure not a short yardage guy. He's not in the middle of the field guy that much over these other running backs. So what's his role? He's the 4th runner out of the backfield if we're factoring in Lamar Jackson. There's just no real point to make him the priority. Let everybody else go for the shiny object, and then we will talk about some of these other players that maybe are more worth your pickup. Garrett, if I can come back and win this week, it'll solely be because of T, Higgins, Kincaid, CJ Stroud, and Eckler if he can go off. I mean, hey, like you said, you need 14 or so. Certainly possible. Stoof, Gus, and Lamar touchdown vultures have to score 20, 30 yard touchdowns to be relevant. Yeah. I mean, truthfully, what's he? 5'8", maybe at best? 5'8", 191. I think that's generous. Of Keaton Mitchell. He's small. He's not going to be a goal line guy. He's going to have to be a home run guy, which he is. Skill set wise, he is, but he's not going to have the role. He's just not. And then next week, by the way, he plays Cleveland, which is a nightmare. Then he plays Cincinnati, which is tough. Then he plays the Chargers, which you can run against, but the Chargers can score as well. That's not going to be a blowout. And then it's a bye week. And then the Rams, which maybe that could be a blowout, depending on the health of Stafford and everything else. But boy, you do not want Keaton Mitchell in redraft. There's no reason. There's no reason. We got to be smart here. And I know viewers of this channel are smart. So I know we're not going to be the ones to go do that. But over the past 24 hours, he's been picked up in over half a million leagues. That's not saying much. He's still rostered in only 3% of sleeper fantasy leagues. But boy, again, context. Number 2 most picked up player, someone playing tonight. So we shall see how he does, but it's against the Jets. So, not overly optimistic. Obviously, he's a player I've been criticizing since the draft. Quentin Johnston, like I said earlier, Josh Palmer put on IR, so he's going to miss the next several weeks. Quentin Johnston thrived, relative to his other performance. He thrived last game again against the Chicago Bears. He played 70% of the snaps. That's his most by far of the year. 5 catches, 50 yards. Great, whatever. This week against the Jets, don't expect much. Talking tonight. For week 10, then he plays the Lions. That's a matchup he could win. Then he plays the Packers. That's a matchup he could win. Then he's got Ravens, Patriots, Broncos, Raiders. Like, he's a guy whose role should grow regardless of Josh Palmer's health the rest of the season. He's a big athletic guy who has the skill set to be a great receiver in this league. Not skill set, physical gifts to be a great receiver in this league. He just doesn't really win the 50-50 balls. He plays like a small receiver. He doesn't do the contested stuff very well. Doesn't really create separation. He's, raw talent is what Quentin Johnston is. Has the chance to be great. We've seen DK Metcalf thrive on raw talent in this league at times. Why can't Quentin Johnston do it? And certainly possible. Certainly possible. Number 3 most picked up player on Sleeper Fantasy. Number 3 most trending player is another one we don't need to touch, but boy, people love Noah Brown. Noah Brown's a solid receiver. Obviously, he had some glimpses, I would say, some flashes with the Dallas Cowboys earlier in his career. Last 2 weeks have been great with the Houston Texans. Last week, week 8, we're talking about 3 catches, 57 yards. This past week, 6 catches, 153 yards, 1 touchdown, product of that huge fucking CJ Stroud performance we were talking about. But why is Noah Brown getting snaps? It's because Robert Woods is out. Robert Woods probably back next week. If not next week, the week after that. As soon as Robert Woods is back, Noah Brown isn't playing over Robert Woods. So, I can tell you that right now. So, very short shelf life. Shelf life may actually be non-existent. Noah Brown isn't the number 2 most picked up player, or shouldn't be. He shouldn't be your number 2 target. Shouldn't be your number 1 target. If you want to take a chance, if you're super desperate at wide receiver and you want to take a chance that Robert Woods doesn't play this week, then sure. That's the reason to go for Noah Brown. That's it. He's not a hold on your bench. He's not anything like that. If there's a chance Robert Woods doesn't play, then Noah Brown could be okay. The other, only rostering 60% of leagues, so maybe this Texans receiver's out there. If Tank Dell is out there, go get Tank Dell. Tank Dell at least has a weekly role. Coming off the bye, coming off his injury, 78% of the snaps, 85% of the snaps. Obviously, those 2 games were without Robert Woods, but we saw him perform with Robert Woods earlier in the year. They obviously played different positions at receiver, so go get Tank Dell. He's the 6th most trending player on Sleeper Fantasy, and he's a person you can absolutely go get. Yeet. If you haven't answered your question yet, definitely go and ask. Yeah, a few questions. Fire them away. Stoof. I need Johnston to outscore Eckler and Conklin by 1 point to win. I'm not feeling it, but I think let's start with baby steps. Let's see if he can outscore Conklin tonight. I'm not confident that happens either. Noah Brown is James Jones vibes. Kind of. James Jones is just a touchdown monster. Noah Brown, I think, is okay at least. Start sit Dak or Russ next week. Early to ask this. I'll give my initial answer, but Wednesday ranking show, I'll definitely have a more developed answer. Let's see who they play. Dak is going to play the Giants. Obviously, not a terrible matchup. We'll see how much the Giants fight back, though. And then Russell Wilson plays the Bills off of a bye. I think you have to go with Dak just because of how he's playing. But I think, as your question suggests, this is closer than what most people maybe want to believe. But yeah, I think you have to go Dak. I'm going to be ranking Dak higher. He's just playing so good right now. And if there's a game to, step on your opponent's throat and show the rest of the league that you're legit, to get some swag back in the offense after a loss, maybe a loss that they shouldn't have had, but after a loss to the Eagles. Like, the Giants could absolutely be a get-right game for Dak, for this offense, for Tony Pollard, as we talked about earlier. So, got to go him. And, hey, he may have a new weapon this week as well. We could have Martavis Bryant with the Dallas Cowboys. Has Sleeper added Martavis Bryant yet? That is the question. Because I would love to pick him up for Dynasty. Does not look like it. Sleeper, get on your shit. Martavis Bryant's reinstated by the NFL. I'd like to pick him up in Dynasty as a speculative ad, obviously. Zach Espinosa's name backwards. It's a Harry Potter spell. It certainly looks that way. Or it's a name in the new Assassin's Creed game too, possibly. Second question. I had Adams, Ayuk, Kirk, Deontay, Cooper, and Thielen as his receivers. Had or have? Has to be have. My running backs are Walker, Jones, Montgomery, and Brian Robinson. I got an offer to send Ayuk for Jonathan Taylor. I'm concerned about the Seahawks schedule. We just talked about that, rightfully so. And Gibbs might be the RB1 now. No. Okay, so you would be sending Ayuk for Jonathan Taylor. That means your receivers are Devontae Adams, Christian Kirk, Deontay Johnson, Amari Cooper, and Thielen, which I think is fine. Yeah, I would do that trade for sure. I'm doing that trade regardless. I think David Montgomery is still the more valuable running back in the Detroit backfield once they're all healthy. But Jonathan Taylor has a firm control of this backfield now. He played like shit this week, relative. He didn't really play very well, and he still dominated the snaps. Like, Zach Moss is no longer startable in fantasy. He's a handcuff. Like, he's one of the better handcuffs as we've seen, but Jonathan Taylor is an RB1 the rest of the way based on workload alone, and in the right matchups, he could be very, very good. So, I like it. I like it. Your receivers are good. You can get rid of Ayuk. You're fine with that. Go Bills. Dropping Love. I have Fields. Do I pick up Watson, Mayfield, or Carr? I would think Deshaun Watson. Let me just look at their matchups really quick for this week, because obviously you're probably not starting Fields this week. Baker plays Tennessee. Carr plays... I just need to type it in. Derek Carr plays the Vikings. Good matchup. But, he's not even a full-time quarterback. And then Deshaun Watson plays Baltimore, which tough, obviously. You're picking up somebody to play this week, I guess, right? So I think I would go Derek Carr, despite him not being the full-time quarterback. Like, I think I'm going Derek Carr. I think he has the best week of the three. Long term, I like Watson more, but whoops. But yeah, I think you got to go Derek Carr for right now. Do we sell high on Tank Dell? Yeah. I'm of the camp always, I think. If you can sell high, you sell high. Like, value is relative. If I pick up $1 and someone's going to give me $1 and a nickel for it, I'm going to take it. The question, I suppose, is can Tank Dell sustain this? Can he get better? And I don't think so. I think there's a chance he sustains relative this value, right? I don't think he's going to be 100 yards and stuff, but if you can sell him at his current value, if you can sell him for what he did this week, then I think you sell him. I think he's relevant the rest of the way. I think he is a PPR wide receiver 3 probably the rest of the way. He has some good weeks, has some bad weeks. But yeah, if you can sell him as a legit fantasy starter, then I think you sell him as a legit fantasy starter. He's not a must sell, though, which I think people don't, maybe some other fantasy people forget to say. Like if you can sell, sure. But you don't need to panic sell a player like Tank Dell. He's not going to go away as long as he is healthy, which I suppose is a big if given his body, but I like him. I think he's good. Espinoza, we had this conversation earlier about Tank Dell. Do what you want with that information. I agree with Bruner. Sell high if you can, when you can, if you can. Yeah, I mean, fantasy football, think of it as a stock market a little bit, right? You buy low, you sell high. And then if you make some good deals here, make some good day trades, then you're going to come out on top in value. And that is what you're looking to do. That's what you're looking to do. But yeah, I like Tank Dell. Not a must sell. But if you can sell him as a wide receiver 3, maybe a high-end wide receiver 3, maybe a wide receiver 2, then you should do it. Looking at the other trending players in fantasy football, number 4, Joshua Dobbs, the most trending quarterback, it looks like. Picked up right now in about 112,000 leagues. Oh, no, sorry, 173,000 leagues. Josh Dobbs didn't start the game against the Vikings. He came in after the rookie got hurt, and Josh Dobbs did Josh Dobbs things, essentially. He threw the ball fine. Like, I watched that game. He threw the ball fine. He didn't do anything out of his mind. He didn't do anything incredible. The fact that he came in on a short week, he gets traded there and he comes in, doesn't know the playbook fully yet. I thought he played pretty well. And given his receivers, right, he doesn't even have Justin Jefferson yet. 158 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air. Not bad. Not bad. Where Josh Dobbs makes his money, though, for fantasy is with his legs, obviously. 66 yards and a touchdown. I think people are still undervaluing his legs a little bit. He's had at least 40 yards rushing in 6 games already. That's at least 4 points you can just plug in. He's had a rushing touchdown in each of the last 3 games, so that's 10 points right there. 40 yards rushing and a touchdown. Like, I think Josh Dobbs for sure is a good bye week fill-in. I think Josh Dobbs for sure is a good quarterback 2 in a 2-quarterback league. And I think in the right matchups, you could get by with him as your quarterback 1. Like, do I think he's a must pick up? No. In regular redraft leagues, if you're in a 10 or 12 team league, you're starting 1 quarterback. You don't need to pick up Josh Dobbs. But the biggest thing with Josh Dobbs, and I think I said this in the video from last week after he got traded, when we were reacting live, like I was live when he got traded. I think we said it then. Like, he isn't that huge of a downgrade from Kirk Cousins for the rest of the, receivers there. When Justin Jefferson comes back, which could be this week, might be the week after. Like, I think Justin Jefferson's still a low-end wide receiver 1. I don't think he's the Justin Jefferson of old with Kirk Cousins, with the offense humming, with healthy, right? With everything. I don't think he's that, but I think he's still wide receiver 1. I think TJ Hawkinson could go huge here. We've seen Josh Dobbs lock on to a tight end in Arizona and just pepper them with targets. We saw it with Trey McBride. We saw it with Zach Ertz earlier in the year. And TJ Hawkinson could certainly be the next benefactor of that. So I think it's going to be good for TJ Hawkinson's value. I think it's actually an increase in TJ Hawkinson's value, possibly. And then I think Jordan Addison can still do his stuff. I think KJ Osborne hurt this week. Concussion, I believe. Brandon Powell came in, played all right. So, like, in short, Josh Dobbs can absolutely be serviceable for fantasy. But most of all, Josh Dobbs doesn't bring down the rest of the Vikings players you actually want to play, which I think is the most important thing. Cam Akers also in this game looks like he tore his Achilles again. So obviously season ending. We'll see about career ending. He came back from that Achilles very quickly last time, 5 months or so. Similar procedure and tactic that Aaron Rodgers is taking right now. Aaron Rodgers obviously looking good. I don't know if it's the same Achilles. I assume it is, but I don't know for sure. But regardless, Cam Akers, redraft leagues, fully droppable. And Alexander Mattison all of a sudden has the backfield locked up again. I don't know if the Vikings would be looking to add another running back. I don't know anyone out there that really makes sense for them to do that. But Alexander Mattison, once again, is an RB2, I think. I think that's where I would value him. And honestly, having Josh Dobbs, he's not like the typical mobile running back where you're calling a bunch of run plays for him. But defenses still have to respect his legs a little bit, still have to respect his speed to contain him. And I think that actually helps Alexander Mattison as well. So this Vikings offense, like with Josh Dobbs, we'll see. We'll see. I think it's not too bad. Ralph, Tank Dell, and Algier for Josh Jacobs. I would take Josh Jacobs in a heartbeat. I would take the Josh Jacobs side in a heartbeat. Obviously you're the Dell owner, so sell high. Yeah, and especially if the Josh Jacobs owner right now has Bijan, I think that is a trade that they actually may take. But I would for sure offer that if I were you. If they decline it, I don't think it's so lopsided that anyone would get upset. You know what I mean? Which is also something you have to think about. But yeah, I would like the Josh Jacobs side for sure. And he does have Bijan. So fuck yeah, love it. What's up, Global? New guy. What's up? Ask whatever you want. Trades, waiver, life. Stoof knows too well. You can ask whatever you want here, and sometimes cause an aneurysm. So do what you got to do. Other trending players quickly, and then I wrote down some specifically that I wanted to talk about. But Taysom Hill is the 7th most trending picked up player. I've done my spiel on Taysom Hill. He continues to have a different role every single week, but he continues to perform. So I'm done being vocal about talking him down. But yeah, I'm not picking up Taysom Hill I personally am not picking up Taysom Hill regardless. As me recommending for other people, I'm not picking up Taysom Hill if he's going on my bench. You pick him up if you're starting him. He's not a guy you're putting on your bench as a wait and see. Like, there's no wait and see with Taysom Hill. He is what he is. He's inconsistent in both his production and his role. And if you need a bye week fill in, if you have a struggling tight end, if you're picking him up to start him right now, then fine. But don't pick him up to put him on your bench. He has the Vikings this week, certainly a matchup he can win. Then he has a bye week. So keep that in mind if you're wanting to pick him up. Gerald Everett, 8th most picked up player. He plays tonight. Obviously, talk about inconsistent. He really doesn't have much of a role when Parham is playing, but that is fine in terms of fantasy. Jamison Crowder, number 9, Curtis Samuel out this past week, and Crowder's had a really good week 8. He had an okay week 9. Nothing to freak out about there. Yeah. In terms of trending players, that's good. That's good. We can talk about some other players here in a sec, though. Just traded Diggs for Chase and Ken Walker, and I hope it doesn't get vetoed. I don't think it'll get vetoed. Well, I mean, clearly you won the trade, but yeah, would it get vetoed? I mean, I don't think it should get vetoed. If you need an argument, just say Stephon Diggs is essentially the most consistent wide receiver, consistent and top performing, really, in fantasy. He's up, aside from Tyreek Hill. Chase, little inconsistent, and hey, look, T. Higgins just went off. Now he's going to eat into his role. I don't believe that, but you can use that. And then Ken Walker has played under half the snaps in back-to-back weeks, has a terrible fantasy football playoff schedule. So, yeah, you can use that if you need to. But yeah, you still won the trade. I believe the things I just said, minus the Chase thing. T. Higgins doesn't eat into Chase. They coexist. Ken Walker, I'm a little nervous about, but if you can get him with Chase for this trade, you do it, right? Taysom Hill just isn't reliable. I had him last year. Yeah, the only thing we know about Taysom Hill is that he's inconsistent. He doesn't have a role. If you don't have a role that's consistent, opportunity leads to productivity in fantasy football. If your opportunity is inconsistent, then your productivity is going to be inconsistent. And good luck ever guessing what Taysom Hill is going to do. Taysom Hill was a top-ranked tight end by many of my fellow Fantasy Pros rankers 2 weeks ago. Multiple people screaming on the balcony saying that Taysom Hill is a tight end now. He's going to get all these targets, all of that. Not true. He had 1 target, but he ran 2 touchdowns in. So, you can't predict what his role is going to be. And the touchdowns at some point are just not going to be there. And when the touchdowns aren't there, he's just a white gimmick, I'm third in right now. Third and something, I don't know. Chase and Ken Walker both bye week. I mean, that's true as well. Bye week free. Chase has an easier playoff schedule. I like the trade for you regardless. I'm just saying. I was just making a case for if other people were going to try to veto it or say it's unfair. Dobbs and Parham would be a legendary duo. It would be. It would be. Donald Parham's a big motherfucker. He's 6'8"? He's massive. I'd consider picking up Hill for the 1 week my tight end's on bye. For sure. If you have Dallas Goedert, he's on bye and he's hurt, I suppose. Travis Kelce on bye this week. Pick up Taysom Hill and start him against the Vikings, right? He seemingly has just as good of a chance to score a touchdown against the Vikings as anybody has to score a touchdown against anybody. And then the week after, Taysom Hill's on bye, but you got Travis Kelce back and you're good. If that's your situation, I don't mind picking up Taysom Hill. I just don't like picking him up to stash him on your bench. I don't like picking up Taysom Hill to be a long-term solution for anything. And I mean, you agree, it seems like. So, not talking to you specifically, but talking to the people who watch this YouTube video after the fact and call me an idiot, which happens every time, which is fine. That's okay. Track record speaks for itself. Other players I wrote down, we did our spiel on Keaton Mitchell. Go back to the beginning if you are thinking Keaton Mitchell's the top pickup. Josh Dobbs, again, bye week fill-in, quarterback 2 and a 2 quarterback, all good. Tank Dell, I like. Go pick up Tank Dell. If you can sell high in Tank Dell, go ahead, do that. Kyler Murray. Let's see how owned Kyler Murray is on Sleeper. I know on ESPN he's still unowned in 2/3 of leagues. Kyler Murray is rostered in 60% of Sleeper leagues. Kyler Murray is going to play this week. There was a less than 0% chance he would come back to play against Myles Garrett. And I can't believe anybody was saying there was a possibility. So stupid. But he has Atlanta this week. Obviously a great matchup. We've seen how Atlanta has given up some big performances last week to Josh Dobbs, Will Levis the week before that. So he's got Atlanta, Houston, Rams, Pittsburgh, bye. So the late bye kind of sucks. Then San Francisco kind of sucks. But then he has Chicago in your fantasy playoffs. And then he has Philly in your fantasy playoffs. If the year trends as it is trending right now, Philadelphia may not even need to win that game, But yeah, Kyler Murray, obviously a must-own player right now. Even if you have a legit quarterback, pick up Kyler Murray if you have a spot on your bench whatsoever. He is going to be fantastic trade bait. And go get him. Go get him. 60% owned in Sleeper Fantasy, 40% unowned, if my math is correct. Got to go get him. Got to go get Kyler Murray. He should be the number one pickup. Legit. Like, I don't know why he's not. And we're talking about Patrick Mahomes is on bye. Tua's on bye. Jalen Hurts is on bye. You can pick up Kyler Murray and start him this week. I'm fine with that. Obviously, I would love to take a 1 week wait and see, but you may not be in that position. Go ahead and pick him up. Go get him. Sup, Garner. Taysom better than Kelsey, for sure. I build my team solely on trades. I got AJ Brown, ETN. Wow, for Richardson, Puka, and A-Chain. Good job. I mean, that's the definition of sell it high. Good for you. Garner, your fantasy's toast. 7 dudes on IR. That's one of my dynasty leagues. Just everybody. Over half of my bench is on IR. And I have 2 already in the IR slot. So, and I'm still trying to compete, which fucking blows. Global has Murray on every team this year. Yeah, he was my favorite final round draft pick for leagues that had an IR slot, obviously. I'm on so many leagues. It just made too much sense. I have Mahomes, and that's what I'm doing with Kyler this week. Yeah, exactly. It worked out essentially perfectly for you, right? So congrats to you. That's thinking ahead. That is what you got to do. Next player, Zach Charbonnet. His role has been growing in the Seattle backfield. Like I said, is about a 50-50 split this past week with him and Ken Walker. I think as Ken Walker gets healthier, he is going to resume the majority role. I think that as soon as this week, he resumes the majority role. But Charbonnet has been, growing. I think he can be the short yardage guy, and I believe he's playing in all third down situations this past week, which is kind of crazy. So, deep league, worth an own. If you're a Ken Walker owner, he's certainly a handcuff. Not a must pick up or a must own, but certainly the role is growing. Wide receiver, if you're hurting at wide receiver, a player that is going under the radar, I think, is Cedric Tillman, rookie with the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, the Browns traded away Donovan Peoples-Jones to the Lions. Tillman has been like a healthy scratch. And then all of a sudden this week, without Donovan Peoples-Jones, he's the wide receiver 2 now. He played 54 of the 73 snaps. I think he had 1 catch. He really didn't do anything. But if you're playing that much with I don't like him, but a legitimate quarterback, Deshaun Watson, I think there's an obvious potential upside for Cedric Tillman's fantasy value. He could start being a deep threat guy for the Browns. He could start, being a 3-4 catch guy. And I'm not saying he's going to be the league winner for you, but he is certainly a player who could have a relevant role on your fantasy team. So if you have a spot on your bench, pick him up, take a wait and see approach with him. Other receivers, Michael Wilson. He's another rookie receiver who I talked up a bunch. I didn't talk up Cedric Tillman. I talked up Michael Wilson a bunch during the draft process. After that, his whole thing, the only reason why he really dropped in the draft is that he was super injury prone. Was out this past week. But really, he's been healthy all year. He's been performing extremely well with everything considered. Let me look up his exact stats, but he's been performing well. He has played 75% of the snaps or more each of his past 4 games, 58 yards on 6 targets against the Ravens in week 8, which is pretty good. He obviously has had 5 games this year with over 50 yards. And again, just pairing this with the Kyler Murray talk, his quarterback play is going to drastically increase when Kyler Murray comes back. I'm not a Kyler Murray fan. It just is what it is. He's certainly better than Clayton Tune, and he's certainly better than Josh Dobbs. So Michael Wilson's a player you can pick up and could potentially be pretty good considering the matchups again. Falcons, Texans, Rams, and Steelers the next 4 weeks. I like that. I hope when Kyler comes back to building connection, certainly possible. I mean, we knew Kyler had an okay connection with Marquise Brown, obviously a very strong connection with DeAndre Hopkins. He never really got it going with Rondale Moore very much. So opportunity is there for someone to become Kyler Murray's go-to guy. That role is wide open. Another player I love, well, I'm not sure if I said he was my favorite pickup last week or not, but he was one of them for sure. Pop Douglas, Demario Douglas, rookie receiver for the Patriots, really the only receiver who has done anything for the Patriots this year, minus Kendrick Bourne, who is out for the season. 62, 77, 83 is his snap percentage each of the last 3 weeks. 7 targets in back-to-back games. 5 catches in back-to-back games. He is going to be the wide receiver 1 going forward for the Patriots. This week, he has the Colts. Awesome matchup. Then it's a bye. But then he has the Giants, the Chargers, the Steelers, the Chiefs, the Broncos, the Bills. Love it. Love it. I mean, certainly a situation where he can be a reliable wide receiver 3 on your team for the rest of the season. I do believe that. And no other receiver on the Patriots is even stepping up. Juju is a backup. Like, once Devontae Parker comes back, and they have somebody else who's out hurt right now as well, who is coming back. Like, Juju may not. There's a chance that Juju is a healthy scratch in a month's time. So, Pop Douglas, Demario Douglas is the receiver from New England to own. Only other running back really to talk about, Jamal Williams. He didn't have a very big week from fantasy perspective, but him and Kamara are 50-50. We talked about this. I hate Alvin Kamara. We talked about this. I hate Alvin Kamara for fantasy. I said a couple weeks ago, I put his over-under for touchdowns rest of the season at 2.5, and I'd take the under. Maybe I'll put it at 1.5 now and take the under. I still like that. Get down to the goal line. Taysom Hill's going to be running it. Jamal Williams is going to be running it. Maybe Kendrick Miller is running it. Maybe they throw it to Juwan Johnson. Alvin Kamara is not going to be running it or catching it in the goal line. And then now Alvin Kamara is splitting snaps 50-50 with Jamal Williams, splitting carries with him and Taysom Hill. If Alvin Kamara doesn't catch like 6 to 10 passes a game, like, he's really not that valuable. So talking about a sell high, like, if you could sell high at Alvin Kamara still, go ahead and do so. This past week, 49% of the snaps, 9 carries, 4 receptions. Week before that, 58% of the snaps, 17 carries, 4 receptions. Scored a touchdown. Touchdowns. That's good. When the touchdowns aren't there, we see that 11 fantasy point output like last week. 2 great matchups coming up. Vikings this week, then a bye, then the Falcons. If you can use those great matchups coming up as the light at the end of the tunnel when you're selling Alvin Kamara, if you're using that as the keys to dangle in front of your opponent's face of why they should be trading for Alvin Kamara, then I love it. If you can trade Alvin Kamara for running back 1 value, pull the trigger, because he's not a running back 1 the rest of the way for me. I assume he will be ranked as such by most people this week. He will not be ranked that way for me, and it's because his potential to score touchdowns is just not very high, and now he's splitting the carries 4 ways. Kendrick Miller is still a little bit involved as well. Does that bring us to our last person I wrote down? If you are in need of a tight end, I'm not going for Taysom Hill. I'm going for Cade Otton. He was in my streamers article last week. I assume he'll be in it again this week because he's probably not going to be very owned. Let's see how owned he is at the current moment. He's currently owned in 10% of sleeper fantasy leagues. Keaton has a 14.3 target rate over the season. That's 7th among all tight ends that have ran at least 150 routes. So legit opportunity, legit role. He has played over 90% of the snaps every single week. He played 100% of the snaps last week. He has 21 targets over the past 3 games. He has 15 catches over the past 3 games. This past week, he caught 2 touchdowns. That's why he's on everyone's radar now. But obviously, we talked about him last week. Like I said, wrote about him. I'm not expecting the touchdowns to be there, right? Like, that's stupid to assume. But if he's a 5-catch tight end every single week, clearly that's valuable. Like, someone needs that in their starting lineup, and they're not currently getting that. Talking to you, Kyle Pitts owners. I'm talking to you. I mean, a lot of people. I mean, hell, George Kittle owners. George Kittle's so inconsistent. So if you are a fantasy owner, look at your tight end position going forward, rest of the season. And if you could benefit from a tight end who has a floor of around 4 to 5 catches seemingly the rest of the way, then take a look at Keaton. He is certainly someone who needs to be owned in more than 10% of fantasy leagues. He will be borderline top 15, top 12 rest of the way, I would say. Again, league winning upside I don't believe is there. He is not a difference maker at the position for you. But if you can lock down a tight end who doesn't lose you matchups consistently, that is valuable in fantasy. And Keaton is the type of player who can absolutely do that for you. I've been looking to trade Kamara, says Global, for Pollard and a Watson type of piece. Hopefully not Christian Watson. But yeah, that's an interesting one. So Tony Pollard, people cannot stand, and rightfully so. Hasn't really done much. Struggling to find the end zone. All of the above. Everything's true. I value Pollard for sure more than Alvin Kamara the rest of the way. Already. So like, but I if I'm the Kamara owner, by the way, I'm not trading Kamara for Pollard because I know Kamara's value is higher. Like, people are willing to pay more for Kamara than Pollard. So if you can get somebody, if you can trade Kamara for Pollard and something, go Kamara and a bench running back for Pollard, or Kamara and a bench wide receiver for Pollard and a slight upgrade at that wide receiver. Do something like that. I love trading away Kamara. I don't hate trading for Pollard. Again, best days should still be ahead. Hopefully. If not, then that's a pretty sad season for Tony Pollard, I would say. But yeah, love moving Alvin Kamara. Do I value Higgins or Christian Kirk higher rest of season? Higgins obviously played his biggest snap count in a while last night. Played well. Emotional game for him. He murdered somebody last time he played the Bengals or played the Bills. They came back to life though, so no worries. Kirk. The thing is with Kirk, I think Zay Jones comes back probably this week, and Zay Jones was sort of eating into Christian Kirk a little bit actually to start the year. It's not too soon with Damar Hamlin. Let's. I mean, the fact that we were making it such a big show last night, like, right? I get it. I understand. Big moment. Tough to make it a big show when he's in a healthy scratch yet again. Tough to do that. Not great. By the way, I hope he's not. What's his odds for comeback player of the year? Because there's no way he can win that, right? There's no shot. Let's answer this first, though. I think I would go Higgins rest of the season over Kirk. I think Zay Jones. It's the Zay Jones factor for me. I think he does eat into Kirk a little bit, and if he eats into Kirk a little bit, I think that's the edge. But I do want to look at comeback player of the year odds right now. I don't know who would be ahead of him. Who came back? Honestly, if Aaron Rodgers comes back, fucking give it to him. If he plays again this season, He deserves it. But who season awards? Rookie of the year, comeback player. DeMar Hamlin's minus 125 still. What? He's played in what, one game? There's no shot. Yeah, give it to Breece Hall. Breece Hall's tied for 4th. Give it to Breece Hall. What are we doing? Tua is 2nd at plus 290. That's stupid. Lamar Jackson's 3rd at plus 600. I think that's fair. He obviously sat out a lot last year. I think he sat out more because he didn't have a contract. But Lamar Jackson's fucking balling. He's playing so good right now. It's getting slept on a little bit because it's not translating to fantasy very often, but he has been great. Boy, this is tough. Josh Dobbs is tied for 4th as well. Why would he get that? Maybe Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray makes sense if he ends the season hot. Boy, this is a wasteland. If the Buccaneers go on to win that division, I think Baker Mayfield is okay. But DeMar Hamlin being the far and away favorite is stupid. That is stupid. I think he played in one game. Let me look at that. I'm pretty sure he did. I think he was active for one game. DeMar Hamlin stats. I'll look it up on Pro Football Focus if I need to. Looks like he was active for the game against Miami. He didn't record any stats, though. Yeah, he's played in one game this year. What did he win last year? What is this? This isn't a rabbit hole I thought I was going to go down. DeMar Hamlin was 12th in comeback player of the year voting last year? What are we doing? What are we doing? He didn't, he came back to life. That's fair. That's fair, actually. He deserved it more last year than he deserves it this year. And I don't think that's a hot take whatsoever. Fucking Geno won it last year because he was relevant again. What about Eckler? Eckler's fine. He was not on the odds. Yeah, Eckler's not. His odds aren't even posted for it. But he went out week 1, so now I come back, I guess. I mean, Dash, I missed the damn stream. You're here. Sup, bro? Came back. He did. He did. I mean, that's not an exaggeration. DeMar Hamlin deserved the award last year more than he deserves it this year for sure. And he was 12th in the voting last year. J.J. Watt had more votes than DeMar Hamlin last year. I want to know one person voted for him. One person. I want to know who voted for him. Somebody voted for David Ajabo. Did David Ajabo get a vote? Like, did he vote for himself? Geno Smith, Christian Watson, Saquon, Brandon Graham are the top 4 last year. In the odds for this year, top 5, DeMar Hamlin minus 125, Tua plus 290, Lamar Jackson plus 600, Breece Hall plus 1,000, and Josh Dobbs plus 1,000. I wouldn't give it to any of them. Well, Breece Hall. Otherwise, I don't think the other 4 are even worthy. And I love Lamar Jackson. It just doesn't feel like a big comeback, you know? And DeMar Hamlin hasn't came back. So like I don't think we could give it to him. I'm probably late. I'm sure you probably talked about it. But is that rookie running back for Baltimore a good pickup? Give you the skinny on it. I mean, he didn't get any work until it was a blowout. At best, he is going to be the 3rd player in a 3-back committee. And that's not even including Lamar Jackson. Like, it's going to be Gus Edwards. It's going to be Justice Hill, then Keaton Mitchell. I love Keaton Mitchell. I think he's super talented. I think he deserves a role. But it was they were up by 30 points. So in deeper leagues, I think he should be owned, like 16 team. In Dynasty, he absolutely needs to be owned. But if you're like in a 10 or 12 team redraft league, no reason. Absolutely no reason. I don't think he's fantasy relevant again unless one of the other running backs gets hurt. Of course, we've seen Baltimore running backs drop like flies, so it's certainly possible, but he did nothing to usurp Gus Edwards. And Justice Hill, I think, is still pretty clearly ahead. He's the 2-minute guy. He's the third down guy. So, like, we're not putting Keaton Mitchell out there to pass protect. And if he's not out there to pass protect, then he's probably not out there to run routes either. So, no reason. No real reason. You're just hoping for an injury or another 30-point blowout. And I don't feel comfortable predicting either. Global, you were the one that voted for David Ajabo. What? Why did he even get a vote? That's so stupid. Coach of the Year voting might be a little. Is that a curse? Brian Dayball is the number one for that. On the Flurry Sports podcast, definitely go check that out. It's certainly a different way to talk about sports. We kind of talk about the storylines of sports in a way that's kind of like professional wrestling. And we make a lot of jokes. We were talking about last week how the Rookie of the Year voting might be a little bit cursed. Might be a little cursed. Last year it was Garrett Wilson who won it. Well, I mean, Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner were the two, both Jets guys. But we'll see. Dash, Chargers or Jets defense tonight. This could maybe win or lose me the week. Wow. With that in mind, I think I would go with the Chargers. I think the Jets are going to play it relatively safe. Jets defense is a better defense, but for fantasy wise, like I could see the Chargers getting up. And if the Chargers get up to the point where they can just pin their ears back and actually rush the passer, they're going to be able to get to Zach Wilson and for sure get sacks, probably force a turnover. So, yeah, I'm going Chargers. Feel like there's never enough bench spots, says Global. I mean, this year especially. For Dynasty, I think I have a 20-man bench, and over half of my bench players are on fucking IR, and I already have my IR filled. So, I mean, there's so many injuries this year. It's tough. I also play in a league with, I think it's a 4-man bench, and that's a nightmare. That's an absolute nightmare. Anybody else to really talk about? I mean, I think I talked about all the players. I wrote down again injuries. Dallas Goedert, Eagles are on bye this week, but he has a forearm fracture. Wouldn't be surprising if he gets put on IR. Not season ending, but can't imagine he's back within a couple weeks. Cam Akers, torn Achilles, likely out rest of the year. Most likely torn Achilles, seems that way, so out rest of the year. Daniel Jones, it seems like a torn ACL. That would put him out for the year. Josh Palmer's on IR. Obviously, Chargers play tonight. That means he's out for at least 4 weeks. Quentin Johnston has the opportunity to grow in that role and do something. I don't think it's going to be tonight, but we'll see. Josh Downs suffered a knee injury. I don't know if there's any more clarity on that, but let's look that up, because if Josh Downs is out, that's a big deal. It didn't seem like it was that serious, but I do want to look just in case. My main league did a DOP this year instead of a defense, like a individual player, if that's what you mean. If so, one of my dynasty leagues, I love it personally. We don't have a team defense, but we have a defensive line spot, a linebacker spot, and a defensive back spot. And I love it. And we have the points set up where they are, legitimate contributors. I mean, you need to get at least 10 points per week from them. So it's good. It's when you're adjusting to that, if you decide to do that more, figuring out how many points tackles should be worth is certainly a situation. because you don't want people who get like 15, 20 tackles to have like a 40-point week. So I like it though a lot more than team defense. I think it's more strategy. I think it's more fun. Yeah, I think Josh Downs just sort of tweaked a knee issue that was already happening. I don't think it's a long-term thing though, but no real news. So this isn't me saying definitively he's fine, but I could see him being out probably a week. Let me just look at their schedule, see if there's anything that makes sense. Oh, Colts play the Patriots this week in Germany, right? I think it's in Germany, and then it's a bye. So I'm going to guess that Josh Downs comes back week 12. So sounds like you're going to be without Josh Downs for 2 weeks. One of those weeks are, when they play. This isn't definitive. This isn't anything like that. There hasn't been an official report of the injury. But if you were relying on Josh Downs, I think you need to have a replacement in line for at least the next 2 weeks. At least. Which sucks. Do you think Pollard not so great this year is because the offensive line run blocking, or just Pollard? Certainly offensive line is a huge part. That offensive line has sort of been makeshift a little bit. They've been underperforming a lot. Not a ton of running lanes. To really start the year, there was just a lot of situations where the defense was scoring and the offense wasn't on the field very much. But then it's developed into, running lanes aren't very good. And on the goal line especially, like, Cowboys can't get the push to score. So it's not like he's getting those short yardage touchdowns. So if you're saying Tony Pollard has to find the end zone from 5 to 10 plus yards out, that's a lot harder. He should be used more than he's being used, I think. And I think that gets corrected. So I don't think it's just the offensive line. I think it's maybe a little bit Tony Pollard, but I think it's as a longtime Packers fan and analyst, I do think it's a part of the Mike McCarthy offense, unfortunately. And, thanks for hanging out, Global. Definitely go get that sleep. Subscribe or follow if you're on Twitch here. If you're not already, I usually go live Monday or Tuesday morning, depending on my work schedule, to talk fantasy, to talk waiver wire stuff like this. Wednesday evenings, 7 p.m. Central, we are live for the ranking show. Thursday, before Thursday Night Football, it's usually not me on that show, but we also go live for a start sit. And if there is any interest, I may add a show this week for fantasy football trades, just for people to just ask questions. That would more so be at night, I would say. But if you have any other questions for Fantasy Global, anyone else asking, I'll use this as the sign off here. If you have any other questions, please join the Fantasy Football by Committee Facebook group. Just go to Facebook, type in Fantasy Football by Committee, join that group. You can ask questions directly to me, to anybody else you see on this show, and to other people in the community. You can ask questions anonymously if you would like, so other people in your league maybe don't find that you're asking these questions where you're getting answers, stuff like that. But you can answer other people's questions as well. It's just a nice growing community over there. I want to develop a really good, positive, helpful fantasy football community. The streams are also shared in there so you don't miss them. Rankings are shared in there, other articles. If you are a fantasy analyst yourself or want to be, you can share articles and stuff in there as well. No limits. Go in there, join Fantasy Football by Committee, and just hang out, and let's all win our leagues this year together. Shout out to you, Global. Shout out to anyone else who joined the stream today, talking or just hanging out. Love you all. And I will be back Wednesday night. I don't expect to be back earlier than that, but subscribe, hit the bell if you're on YouTube, because you never know.